Well, welcome to the Art and Heart of Menopause Salon with me. I'm Clarissa Kristjansson. I am a Chinese medicine practitioner specializing in women's Qigong and dietary therapy, always focused on women who are perimenopause, menopause, and obviously this wonderful stage of life for those of us who are the other side of menopause that we call the second spring. And I'm delighted to say I'm joined by my good friend, Dr. Chitra Ava.
Hi. Thank you for introducing me. And it's so great to be here with you and learning about you and how you work things. And it's really fabulous. Substack is really cool in that sense that, we get to meet people that are more suited, rather than those quick Instagram type things. It's like, oh, look, nice home. Let's start. You want to be friends? But here it becomes a little bit more. So I'm a doctor of Ayurveda and I work with women, not necessarily exclusively, but I do work with women in the practice of Ayurveda. With perimenopause, which is about the age of 37, 35 and up, all the way through postmenopause and way beyond postmenopause. And as you said, the second spring, I realized, and I was talking to someone about astrology. And at the age of 60, I don't know if you know this, but at the age of 60, all of the planets that you are born under, your natal chart, reset themselves, and they're in the exact same position as they were when you were born.
Oh, wow. No, that was new to me. That's fascinating.
So second spring it is, isn't it? At the age of 60.
It definitely is. And here we go again, the amazing next chapter of life. And it does feel like that. So I don't know about you, but I always feel like navigating other women through perimenopause and menopause in a really positive, whole way is just what's needed in a world where I think that it's very narrow. And we talked about that last week. But today we're going to be talking about, as we said, summer and vacations and how we stay super well at that time of year.
Yes. So today is July 3rd. And even though we celebrated a holiday, what was it, Memorial Day? Or is it Labor Day? Memorial Day, a little while ago, which in the United States is quote unquote summer. And then we had, of course, the solstice, which is also another summer celebration. But, in a way, here in the United States, July 4th is summer. It is summer. This is when we kick off all of the activities, even though we kind of had some before, but now it's like, really, let's kick it off. And this year, it's an ambivalent holiday, at least for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. Going down a political rabbit hole, we're just like, what? But I think here in Sweden, the schools finished a few weeks ago, but now we're in the height of summer and you can really feel it. So the shops shut. Unless there are major chains, there's a notice saying up, we're closed now for 3 weeks. People will go away for anything between 3 weeks to 6 weeks. They leave, the cities empty out and people head to their cottages, to their boats, to caravans, to camp. And it's a whole different vibe everywhere.
So let me, oops, that's you. Different. So sorry. There we go. So I have a question for you. When did this start? Did this start at the solstice
Yeah, it depends. It's kind of staggered. This is the height of schools being on holiday. So quite commonly, I'd say these days, and obviously when I used to come here as a child to visit my grandparents and stuff, people took much longer holidays. But now I notice that people take 3 weeks in July and they come back to work And then they'll have maybe a bit more time off before the kids go back to school in the third week in August.
I see. Okay. Well, here in the United States, we have this Protestant ethic of never taking vacation.
Yeah.
And but when we do take vacation, and most of the time, and I'm just being really general. Most of the times it's because the kids are off from school. And it used to be that, kids would end their schooling in June at some point in time, but now the school season has extended. It starts a little bit earlier in August. So there's this need to really crush that time in July and go do all of the things that we can't do while we are working, because the society wants everything to be the same all the time, so that we are part of this never ending circle grind.
Yep.
And it's very different. It's a circle rather than a spiral. It's not a rhythm. It's very, very different. So that's what's going on here. People are anxious to get on vacation and do all of the things. And so that's where we're at.
Yeah. And I think what I also see is, that we throw every routine we've ever had that keeps us anchored the whole of the year out the window. So food changes, sleep changes. We're literally just throwing caution sometimes to the wind. Sometimes and alcohol. Oh my God. I don't drink, but I went to pick something up for him, the one indoors here. And, you couldn't move for the number of people. The whole car park was full of camper vans, and people were buying box loads of the stuff.
And the same as happening here. We have our barbecues, we have our go to the beach, and so in a sense, what we want is we want to relax, see things, drink a lot, eat a lot.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot of things. And so, when we're looking at it from both an Ayurvedic and Chinese perspective, this a lot can lead into burnout. Even if you're on vacation and not doing the work thing, you're still in that high moving place. So in Ayurveda, we have concepts of what seasons are and how we define them beyond the month of the year and beyond the date itself. Is the same true for Chinese medicine?
It's true. We have the seasons, and of course they're attached to particular organ systems that are happening. And obviously there's a difference for Chinese medicine in the balance between yin and yang. So yang being very up, very outward, active kind of energy. That's exactly what we've got naturally going on in nature. That reflects in us. Traditionally, of course, people would have been busy working on their farms and harvesting and getting going like that. Then now instead we're kind of yang on yang, I would say, because we're already pretty much in a yang excess world. And a lot of going on holiday does that. And of course, that can lead to imbalances and can lead to people not feeling very well, and particularly things like their digestion, or they pick up some bug.
So in Ayurveda, we are seeing it's Pitta season. Plain Pitta season. The great thing about Pitta is that it is very bright and expansive and upward moving, similar to the Chinese medicine, but it's also can be hot, intense, and very focused. And that's what we do here. We also have two summer seasons, you could say, because we split the year up into 6 rather than 4. No matter where you are in the world, although the temperatures may feel different, what we see the summer, which is the season that we're in now, it's considered hot, dry, and light. Light as in how much light there is out there. It's also dry. And then, of course, it's hot. It's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And what we naturally want to do is we have all this energy to do things. And so what we want to do is we want to cool ourselves down, whether it is cooling the mind with alcohol, going to the beach. But when we get back to that alcohol thing, alcohol is not really cooling. What it is it's adding fire. So again, it's fire on top of fire on top of fire. Whereas you say yang on top of yang on top of yang, which is kind of interesting.
So much similarity because we have 5 seasons in the Chinese tradition, not 4. We have a second summer season. So right now we're in this yang energy, this up energy. As you said, it's light, it's joyful, but it can also tip over into restlessness and irritability very quickly. We see that breakout on travel cues when things are not quite how we want them to be. But then we move as the summer progresses into the late summer into a more warm, not so hot, but still warm. But that's more an earth energy. That begins to become a bit more grounded. So I think what we've got is those two. And of course, the earth element is, again, the spleen stomach system. So you're all the time in this kind of upper middle part of the body, if we like. If we're talking, you've got the heart and the small intestines, which is its yang organ. And then you've got the spleen and the stomach. So really the focus on taking care of this part of our body becomes, and that's also what we consume mentally as much as what we're consuming physically, becomes really important and very easy to tip ourselves into, I think, very intense kind of anxiety as well in that kind of time.
Yeah. And what we see, we have in the West, we've combined summer season into one whole to deal with this 4 season understanding. But we also have a second summer, you could say, where what's happening is that as Pitta continues to rise, as it continues to get hotter, it also starts getting dry and continues to dry. But the earth, in her wisdom, creates rain to help cool down. And the whole atmosphere actually creates rain. So we have a rainy season. In India, it's monsoon, but it may not be rainy season. So in New York, where I spent a lot of my younger years, August is oppressively humid. And everybody leaves town in August because it's so oppressively humid. So it may not be raining where you are. It may not be monsoon season, but it may be a lot more humid. And that's what we want to be aware of, because it's this opposite thing that's happening to try to adjust. And so there are some things that we want to be aware of during that next season. But for us, it doesn't happen until mid-July. We're right now in the height of let's go.
Let's go. And you mentioned trying to cool down on alcohol. I was going to say that when we look at foods, and foods in Chinese medicine have thermal properties, not literal thermal properties, but energetic thermal properties. And alcohol is the hottest, most yang type of thing you can consume. So if that in a heat is going to just heat you up. It's the exact opposite of what you need. And the only time we would say drink alcohol was if you were very yin, very cold. Then a practitioner might say to you, add a little alcohol in as sort of a night wine to try and get your heat, your body sort of up, get any yang, any warmth into your body. But alcohol is super yang.
and we see that too at Ayurveda. We actually, it's called, it has Visha properties. I don't want to really translate Visha into English because it's a lot bigger, but I will. It's poison. Visha means poison, and what poison basically is something that is sharp, that goes deep into the tissues very quickly. And so that's what alcohol is. So certainly when you're looking at, grain alcohol, absolutely, that's going to be the hottest of all the alcohols. Then you can look down into the wines. Wines are not doesn't have that same property of like being super sharp, but it will, absolutely. And then of course we have the beers also, which it has slightly different properties, and I would have to look at that. And actually, that's going to be a homework for me to see what the difference is in terms of heat between beers and wine.
Me too, because I think there are differences in the Chinese medicine on the degree. So you're quite right, sort of grain base, very, very hot. You think the whiskeys and then the vodkas, and there's very, very sharp, very overheating for the body. And then you come to the wines, but a lot of wines are drunk with medicinal stuff in. Not to be recommended. Yes. I have made a recipe like that. I couldn't. It wasn't for me. Even in the depths of a very cold, dark winter, I was like, no, I'd leave it.
Actually, I have done this. There's an herb called Arjuna, which is a heart herb, Arjuna. And I have put that into wine, and it's a heart medicine, so it changes the properties. So you're not going to get as mind cooling and then mind burning later on as alcohol. But this is not what we came for. Maybe that's another whole thing to look at. Let's talk about what happens on during these holidays. So we've got 4th of July is happening. So we're shooting off fireworks. We're having barbecues. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot. There are picnics. There are foods that we normally don't eat, or we will start eating them in the summertime. So barbecues are generally meat-based, and there may be burnt waste. And this is not, this is heating. This is hard for the body to digest. When we've got a lot of heavy meat, that's hard for the body to digest. And the body might also burn that food, so you're not getting the nutrition out of it because there's a lot of heat that's happening. But from an Ayurvedic perspective, what's actually happening is that our digestive capacity goes down. So we're not as hungry, and Mother Nature provides us with foods that are easy to digest, that allow for enzymes, that are sweet, which is a cooling taste, that have lots of water in it, which is cooling, so that we can digest and have enough energy for the day. And so that's really the type of foods that we want to eat. And I was thinking about, there's a lot of mayonnaise type salads happening at this time of the year too, which is an interesting thing. Normally I would say, no, it's too heavy, right? But if you think about it, it's actually cooling in its nature. So depending on the individual and what their dosha combination is, one might be able to take it, whereas another one may not.
So lots of similarity there with Chinese medicine. Meats, particularly red meats, but even to a certain extent chicken, very heating and best avoided. If you're a meat eater, or eaten in much smaller quantities or less regularly. And obviously anything that involves added extra fire, like barbecue, is going to intensify that thermal property. But the other thing that's interesting in here is that Chinese medicine will then say, well, if you want to eat animal foods, then fish and seafood are actually seen as quite cooling. And part of that is that they contain salt. And salt is very yin. That flavor is associated in Chinese medicine with the kidney system. And so getting that salt into it is in, but also sweet foods and foods that are high in water, exactly the same. The sweet foods are a little bit more late summer, the earth season. That's the carrots, the pumpkins, the very sweet stone fruits as they come through. Whereas the height of the summer is the watermelons, the cucumbers, the arugulas, the various greens and light greens. So you want to be choosing those. But it's interesting about dairy because Chinese medicine has a very kind of interesting relationship with dairy because dairy is often seen as potentially cooling, but it can bring what's known as dampness into the body. And that can create a bloatedness and a heaviness in the body. So again, it's very individual. And of course, anything cold and damp, like ice cream, gets a bit of a no, or very small quantities, I hate to tell you, which is very much a Western summer food.
This is true. This is very interesting that you say what you're saying about salt, because in Ayurveda, salt is pitta increasing. Mm-hmm. Because of the elements that it's made of. So in the summer, the only time we want to have salt, salt should, let me rephrase that. The salty taste should be in appropriate balance every single day, all the time. So we have 6 tastes. They should always be in our diet all the time. It's just the levels of which ones are more dominant and which ones are less. And depending on the individual, again, which is more dominant, which is more less. And then, of course, the season also is highly influential. But in Ayurveda, we don't want to have too much salt in the summer unless we add sugar to it. And what that does, that combination of salt and sweet gives us electrolytes. So that way we're not losing the water that is in us, because salt actually, and I think that this is how I would explain your salt thing from an Ayurvedic perspective with the fish. Fish in general is very oily, depending on the type of fish. So you could go from like a freshwater fish all the way to a saltwater fish, up to what people think salmon is really healthy fish, but those are very, very oily fish. And depending on how long it's been out of its water life, it gets harder and harder and harder to digest, which is why you want to start cooking them and adding salt to it, because the salt absorbs and pulls out some of that heavy oily. It lightens it up in a way. So that's how I would explain the fish, in summertime, especially in areas where you're surrounded by water, because you have extra water in the system at this point.
That's very, very interesting, because I would say that seafood, which it features big in South Asian and Chinese cooking, is also sweet.
It can be.
It can be. If you have prawns and scallops, things that sort of thing, there's a slight sweetness to it, even though the predominant taste of it is salty water.
So in essence, though, it's like that dairy that you have where it can create a kapha imbalance because of that sweet and oil heavy. So you've got those two things together, and that if someone doesn't have appropriate digestive capacity, you have a problem, right? So brining foods in the summertime is great for heavier foods because it's making them lighter.
Yep.
And I'm
Which is actually
about
why
to lose.
a lot of people here in Northern Europe eat pickled herrings. Ooh, you're just hearing that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just really interesting you to view the various ways. Oh, okay. I just had to plug in the phone. So now my phone stand is not working properly. I'm gonna have to do one of these things.
Oh dear. Yeah.
But here's the thing. I I also feel that a person who is relatively healthy, who who wants to go out and have fun with their friends, and then stops having fun because they can't eat the same foods that their friends are eating or what's predominant. I think that that's just as unhealthy as
Yeah.
eating bad food. So
Yeah.
so what we do, at least what I do, is I use spices and different things to help alleviate some of that. So let's talk um, ice cream,
Yeah.
because
Ice
ice cream.
cream. Yeah.
Yes, ice cream is the one, the one, the only. So one of the reasons why people love chocolate ice cream so much in the summertime is because chocolate is bitter, and bitter is great for the liver.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to help cool the liver, even though there's some thing that's going on with it. But what you can do is add cinnamon to your ice cream, and that will warm it up, or cardamom to the ice cream, and that will warm it up enough so that, and it will also assist in helping you digest all of that, what you guys call dampness and I call ama, um, or bad kappa. So it'll help absorb some of that. It'll cool you down a lot. So you don't want to eat ice cream with a whole bunch of things at the end of the meal. You want to eat it on its own, right?
Mm.
And then notice after you eat ice cream, whether or not the next day you start having a lot of mucus in the head, because that will happen with ice cream, and that will happen with anything that's cold and damp, and milk is already kapha. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
something that I want to
So
add
I
to
think
that.
it's about combinations, as you say. It's also about, if you want cooling down, that you choose something that is cool rather than ice cold. So there's so many things, like I think I mentioned to you before that, I traveled to China in the heat, and we went on the Great Wall, and it was so hot. And my guide, he just peeled cucumber and he ate cucumber, and that to cool down. He didn't go for cold water. That was for the tourist. He had with him the cooling vegetables. And that way you're getting not too much sweetness into the system either, but you're still getting lots of water. Watermelon is very popular at this time. Other melon type fruits that have a high water content, and are cool in their nature. And therefore, we're not reaching for the ice, which is that we talked about alcohol earlier. Well, ice is kind of at the opposite end of the spectrum, kind of like clogs up the whole system. And it's not what we want. It slows down the digestive system. So we're actually learning to be cool rather than cold.
And there are lots of, so sugar, sweet, will do that. And when I was in India, we would have sugarcane juice. And that would immediately cool us down and give us the electrolytes needed. Um, but there are other things, like you can do rose. Rose tea is really, or it doesn't have to be hot when I'm talking about tea. It could be room temperature. Rose will help cool you down. You can spritz rose water on the face. Peppermints, all of the mints are super cooling. So you can do that kind of thing. Cucumber water, strawberry with so there are any fruits that you see happening right now are cooling pretty much. that's in the height of summer. Your stone fruits are cooling, although they don't have as much water. The thing that you want to be careful about with the fruits is the tropical fruits, mango, pineapple, and papaya. And the reason you want to be careful with those, even though they're from tropical countries, so Mother Nature is giving us something for whatever season it is, but that's not giving us water and cooling properties. They're actually giving us enzymes, which is heating, because we don't have the digestive capacity to digest things. So it gives us those extra things. And papaya, which is even more interesting. Have you ever eaten the seeds of a papaya?
Oh, no, I don't. They're bitter.
No, they're peppery. They taste like pepper. They're spicy. And so what that does in these tropical countries, we have summer is the time of parasitical infections. Mm-hmm. So papaya, if you eat those seeds or grind them up, dry them up, whatever it is that you want to do, that will help with those parasitical infections. So when you're gone on that other end of too much cold in the summer, right? Mm-hmm. That's those are the fruits that are available to us. There's so many more. Pomegranates are fabulous. There are all kinds of different fruits, but fruit is a big, huge thing. Yeah.
So food is a big part of us enjoying our vacation, but also we can use it very strategically to keep our digestion well, just like you said there with the papaya, which I didn't know. I've always thought they were bitter, but maybe I didn't bite into those. and then sort of the whole cooling, heating, maintaining that sort of balance in the body. But what else can we be doing in this time of year? When we're out and about and we're traveling and we're out of our routines, what does Ayurveda recommend we do?
Well, here's the thing with food. Food in general is recommended that you eat it quietly, mindfully, in a clean place. This is year round. But during the summertime, we're usually not at home if we're vacationing. Sometimes we go out specifically to eat out someplace else. So in order to do that sort of thing, what we want to do is we want to create atmospheres where it is calming and it is more mindful, because vacationing is vata increasing. That's the dry. And it is about movement, right? We're standing up in line eating the hot dog or whatever it is. So you sit down rather than stand up. You try not to talk while you're so you're trying to create a very contained atmosphere if possible. So in terms of the foods themselves. But in terms of the movement, what that means when we're traveling, so there are several ways of traveling. We travel air. Flighting is the most aggravating thing we can do for vata. And so what Ayurveda generally recommends to do before and after any travel is put oil on the skin and body. That's what we do. If you're going to take a flight, put oil. You oil your feet, you oil your ears. If you can have a full body oil, that's great. You can take a little vial, an ounce of oil with you on your flight and moisturize your skin, and that will help calm down. No alcohol on the flight, no iced water on the flight, but you take foods that are easy to digest and very light. So you could take your watermelon with you, but the flight itself is very cold. So
yes, and that's a problem, because then it's dry but it's cold. Yeah,
right. So what you want, which is also Vata increasing. So what you want to do is you want to have, you can have tea. I generally will tell people to make sure that they bring ginger tea with them everywhere, or cumin tea. Cumin is a spice that helps the digestion. So either one of those two are really awesome. The other thing that happens with flights is people get constipated. Again, this is another Vata issue. So there are herbs that we can do it, and there's some really great teas out there that have a little bit of senna in it. So there are teas that just take a bag of tea with you and regulate that constipation as quickly as you possibly can. um, Put oil on the head. What is so? There's also a tea called CCF tea, which is cumin, coriander, and fennel. Those so coriander and fennel are going to help calm things down, while the cumin is going to assist in the digestion. So you can do that. You can do fennel you can chew on fennel. So those are some of the things, but really what you want to do is before you leave, rest. After you land, rest, rest, rest. That, rather than running from one place to another immediately. What does Chinese medicine have to say about that?
Chinese medicine would say similar things around teas. And if you've ever sat on a flight with a lot of Chinese people, they will have warming teas, ginger-based teas with them on the flight. They might even drink a hot green tea, although green tea is naturally cooling by nature. And they will take some herbal remedies, which they will have had made up prior to the flight to prepare themselves. But you'll quite often see people doing Qigong exercises, and there's a whole clock, what's called horary points, HORARY, horary points. So they are acupressure points on the hands, the feet, and the legs that can help regulate your digestion. They can help with jet lag, with the fatigue of traveling. And so I'll actually, in the notes we do, I'll put a little chart in there, and you can press those different points for different reasons in order to support you to both go travel and recover. And then with the rest, you might also do that. But you see often on Chinese airlines that they'll also have Qigong practices. They'll be recommending those as movement to prevent stiffness in the shoulders or from sitting too long. And I also would say that what we want to do is create and develop what's known as your Wei Qi field. So that's the energetic field that surrounds the body. Very simple practices like these sort of clearing qis, where you see people kind of scoop energy from the earth and clear, can help to develop your Wei Qi field, keep it clear. And that way you keep out potential infections from the flights. You're sitting close to people who are coughing and breathing all over you. And also that if you get cold or wind, that's always seen as bad. You want to keep wind out of the system. So it gets cold, and that when it's not really supposed to be, and there's temperature contrasts, that can create you to come up with an infection. So you strengthen the Wei Qi field. And I would recommend to people who work with me that we do a particular practice that I call the heaven to earth practice. Very, very, very old Qigong routine, but it really helps to strengthen your Wei Qi field through incredibly simple movements and breathing. And build that up, and then you'll be able to sort of cope with this, jarring of the environment around you.
That brings up a really great point. I love that movement and the points. When we look at Vata, what we want to do is Vata is wind, because wind is movement. And so what we will often do, if you have noise canceling headsets, it's really good to wear them on the flight because it's going to prevent the wind and the dryness from coming in through the ears, which is a vata organ, you could say. Also, you can wrap the back, the lower back, as well, and keep that piece that warm as well while you're on the flight. And that will also assist in some of that constipation because that's where the colon is, as well as it'll just help keep you a little warm. And yeah, no ice drinks, warm drinks on the flight.
Yeah.
What about when you get to
Japan? But when Japan, Japanese have a little woolen or cotton thing you can put around your middle, and that it is worth wearing on the flight. Keeps all your sort of middle organs, which I always think the most important, and the middle jiao, keep them warm and sort of cozy until you get to the other end. But yes, what does happen at the other end?
What does happen at the other end once you land at your place of vacation? What are the things that you like to do? Oh, and we've been on here for about 45 minutes already. It's different being here in this at this time. We're used to being here earlier in the day.
Rest. I think one of the things is, the Chinese medicine clock, this 24-hour clock divided into 2-hour segments. Now, a great space to get some rest in, because you might be out partying in the evening, is to use that time between sort of after lunch between 1 and 3, because you will often have a bit of a dip in the end. You're starting to move out of yang into yin. And this is a great time to carve out some rest time. Go and find a space to be still, to be quiet. Probably not the beach that's overheating you, but coming from a British background and watching people come to the beach in Australia, what are you doing? But mad dogs and Englishmen. But mainly that's when we siesta time. That's Southern Europe siesta, and the quiet time you see in all hot places. People go and have a rest because the system will thank you for that.
It will, and the mind won't listen to that advice. The mind thinks so. The way I would look at it from an Ayurvedic perspective is, yes, rest, but also know what your predominant dosha is. So if you are a Pitta person, you have probably scheduled your vacation down to the second, right? And there are lots of places to go, lots of people to see. We're going to go here, there, and the other place. And then if it doesn't go on schedule, then frustration will happen. So if you are a Pitta person, and you may not have all Pitta people in your party of vacation, schedule time, cut the time that you have in half, see fewer places, leave time for things to go wrong because they will. so leave, leave a little bit of time to just, you're going to focus and want to be at precise places at precise times and do specific things. You're that travel agent type person within your group. So give yourself space. If you are a Vata person, then what? And you're the one who's organized it. Well, you may not have been the one who organized it, but you're certainly the one who's overcommitted to too many things and can't decide what you want to do. So you are the person who really needs to find a place to sit down and do exactly what you're saying, Clarissa, and rest, because you need to rest. Otherwise, you will get overheated, overwhelmed, get burnt, all of the things that can happen that goes wrong. So, yes, so you're the one, go read. That's fine. Do something, get a massage, do massage oil on yourself. always for Vata people. So you want to do that. And then the Kapha people are interesting. They're the ones that are generally heavier. They would rather sit home than go driving or flying. And so I'm not so worried about the Kapha people because they're naturally already at rest. They don't want to move too much. But what happens with Kapha people if they get overheated? They're more likely to lose water because they have a lot of water. They need a lot of water. That's part of their makeup. So you're going to want to drink more of these nice cucumber waters. You want to make sure that you have electrolytes. You want to do all of those kinds of things and not do the ice cream because I know that that's exactly what you want to do. Or maybe you want to have that. Yeah. Cooling margarita because the heat is not your thing.
No, but it's interesting because I think people keep pushing. So your pitta type, I mean, do they get sick somewhere along the holiday?
Well, I would say yes. And they usually get sick after their holiday is done because they have enough force and willpower, they have enough of that third chakra to push right through it. And they may not and they may ignore signals. And it may not even be after that first vacation, but it may be after the 10th vacation, after they've taken all their work with them on the vacation. And doing all of those things while you're on vacation. And this is burnout. So the body will just say, okay, I'm done. You're resting now. Thank you very much for years.
Yes. Yes. But we often see that people do come on holiday and they start running around. And even during the holiday, they get something that flattens them in that second week and they sort of just are floored. So the body said, no, you've done it now. Sorry, that's it. No more for you. You actually shouldn't be taking a week or 2 weeks. You actually need a month or more. But that's not always possible.
Right. It's that food poisoning is pitta, right? It's basically you can't digest whatever it is that you're eating. You just don't have that capacity to do it. So yeah, they do get flattened. We all will get flattened if we do vacation wrong. And the idea of vacation is to vacate. Right? You want to be more expansive. You want to do what summer is asking of you, which is to be expansive, which doesn't mean to fill it with more stuff, things, doings.
No, it's actually meant to be let go of all the things that you're carrying that are too heavy, all the routines that are wearing you down, and make some space. But not all of us are that good at that.
No. But if you keep these principles in mind, you can enjoy your vacation much better because if we're running around and just adding more pitta or yang on top of this all, the other thing that happens on vacations, people fight. How many family feuds have happened on vacation, right?
Yeah.
Because and that's anger and frustration. Those are all pitta increase. They're all pitta. They're all increasing.
They're all yang. They're all excess yang creates irritability. And then if your digestion isn't working well and you haven't been sleeping, the liver is irritated. So the anger, the resentment, the things you've held back, they just have to come out. And that is unfortunately the other side of that, not maybe honoring that we have given a little space to come back down, but we keep pushing and pushing. And that's the kind of world we live in too. I mean, this is the FOMO, I've got to do everything, send 100 million Instagram to the whole world. And everything else is part of our culture. So I think that can often become sort of a microcosm of the worst of it when we're away.
Yeah. So now that we've dealt with being on vacation, what about how do we adjust when we get back home?
And that's an important one because we land back in, don't we, Chitra? Straight back down, and then we're straight off to the workplace if we're not careful. So I do think that we need to obviously jet lag is one thing to adjust, but we need to get back into our routines. Use it. For me, the Chinese medicine clock, the wheel is there to start anchoring my meal times, anchoring when I go back to bed. So putting yourself back into that routine, slowly and gently start with one thing after the other, just to readjust. And obviously you haven't had that as part of you. That's going to be, you're going to come straight back in. You're going to really feel out of sorts. But using those kinds of tools can really help us to be ways of living. And we may be coming back in a different season. If you went on holiday at the middle of, beginning of August, you could be coming back into a different season.
Yeah.
You'd be coming in from the fire to the earth. So transitioning into a new season with a different energy needs to be respected as well. And that could just be about introducing some foods, or in my case, some grounding practices that are very earth-centered. So you're coming back into this new energy, and it isn't jarring because you've been very up, and then suddenly you're meeting something that's very down, and you're sort of in the middle, feeling very imbalanced.
And that's the case with any abrupt change. The abrupt change is where you're going to get sick. So whether or not you're going on vacation and you abruptly stop or you abruptly start. And one of the ways to mitigate that is while on vacation, you can institute certain ones of your daily routine. So getting up at a similar time and going to sleep at a similar time is fine. Now, in the summertime, you can go to sleep later because it's cooler, and that's perfectly fine. But that doesn't mean that you want to wake up at 10 o'clock in the morning. You want to maintain that morning early schedule. You also can maintain your meal times. Not necessary. So that's part of the routine, and that'll help you adjust back to your time zone a lot better, is if you just stay with the same meal times, because there is something really interesting that happens if it's 12 o'clock in a country that's 6 hours away from me as a time zone, and then I come back to my own time zone, 12 o'clock p.m. noon in my time, in my mind, is the same thing. It may not be physiologically the same thing, but here it's the same thing, and the mind is very powerful. So if you maintain those specific things, that helps you get back a little bit more. And then you're going to be doing nourishing, easy to digest foods. So you don't want them to be too complicated. You want it to be within the season that you're living in. However, if you go, let's say you're flying to Australia where it's winter and you come back to Albuquerque where it's hot summer, what you're going to want to do is your system is still depending on how long you've been there, your digestive capacity may not be in summer, it may be in winter. So you're going to want to have a little bit of foods that are heavier and then a little bit of foods that are lighter, and just allow for the body you're feeding both sides of you. So that's how one would manage that sort of extreme. It's different.
Or if you can find some foods that, are of European origin or US origin when you're in Australia, you're also keeping that kind of slight linkage to where you are. So it's not just how much you eat, but what you eat, but just maybe that little bit of a link. Seek out some of those because you're not completely changing the microbiome so that it's a kind of a shock back again. So you're helping yourself readjust seasonally on every level energetically back to where you are.
And this is where spices are your friend. Because the spices, even though the foods may not change, but the spices can. So having, say, watermelon with a little chili pepper as a juice, right? You drink it as a juice, that will heat up the watermelon enough for you. So you can, there are lots of different ways. You have to be a little adventurous, or speak to somebody who is a proficionado in these kinds of adjustments. But those are things that will help the system. And interestingly enough, when you are in that state, those odd flavors, really crave. You love those things. They may not be good at another time, but now, yes. At that big change, yeah.
Yep. It's just little things that help you get back to your normal routine so that you sort of, you glide into it. You're not sort of, I've arrived, I'm jet lagged, and the next day I'm going to work. The system is like, well, you can only do it when you're very young. When you're 20, your body might recover a bit quickly. But I notice it. And I'm like, oh, this is tough now. Really tough.
And this is where, perimenopause and menopause, this is really frustrating for women. Because it's a double bind. We think that we can do what we used to be able to do in our 20s. And then we find out, no. And this is for men too. It's not just, about the hormones. It's like, no, we're not doing that. We don't have enough what we call kapha, ojas, to help us recover that quickly. And so for perimenopausal women, we just, and menopausal women, we just have to be more mindful. And that's the whole thing about all of this work, is really being mindful of the qualities that you're living in, of the different things. So what we want to always be mindful of in the summer is cool. We want to cool it down. We don't want to do big activities in the middle of the day. We don't want to be in the sun in the middle of the day. I think most of our society has been weaned off of sun tanning in the middle, being at the beach at the 12 o'clock, with oil on.
I think we've gone a little past that, but I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. I lived by Bondi Beach for many decades, and we used to go spot the Brits, spot the Irish. What are they doing? What are they doing? That is boiling here, and they're out in the sun. We're just heading into the shade with hats on. Australian children learn slip, slap, slop, slip on a t-shirt, slap on your sunscreen, slap on your hat. That's what you do. And every child knows that. But no, there are still places where people rush to the beach that they haven't seen. And Swedes are terrible. Honestly, I've never seen a country that sunbathes fanatically like they do.
Well, yeah. It's also all relative. Being young, where you don't where you're not looking at the consequences, of any of this. But, and I'm not even talking about skin cancer. I'm just talking about burning the skin. Just skin burns. It's painful. And yes, you may, have nice coloration because we like to have that brightness of the skin, but it's still going to be painful. And as we age, we want less pain. It's kind of that simple. Less pain, less suffering.
But you're right, for perimenopausal women and menopausal women, this is about staying cool. It's not overexerting. And it is about the bedtime routines and trying to get as much quality sleep. And that can be hard when it's hot. So we want to be working on trying to do that. And waking up in the morning and drinking plenty of water, first thing in the morning. You should be doing that anyway, but definitely if you've gone to somewhere much warmer and you're out of your routine, that's going to be helpful too.
I want to, you just reminded me about lemon water. And lemon water became a big fad here. And that is not the first thing you want to have in the morning because lemon is acidic, right? And what you want to do is you want to wake up your body gently. So plenty of water means 2 cups of water first thing in the morning. And if you want that, if you really need that lemon water, it could be the second one, but I would not do that. Lemon water is good for someone who's got a lot of bad kapha in them. They have a lot of mucus. It'll cut through that, right? It's acidic. But otherwise, you don't want to. And a lot of these health fads came out, at least here in the United States, from what I've observed, is because of our lethargic society. We're sitting down a lot. We're eating foods that are difficult to digest. So a lot of things that are quote unquote health based are okay for that individual who has dietary issues, can't digest, maybe might have too much adipose tissue, or too much mucus is rather the better word. That it might be okay, but not all the time. And ginger is better.
Ginger, and then you would be ginger is much better, and then you'd only be drinking like a small glass of room temperature water.
Yeah,
first thing, and it's just to give you an initial hydration. And then you can go on to your whatever else it is you're doing in the morning, but not. No, I don't think lemon water. And lemon is very obviously it's astringent. It tends to draw in. It's not. No.
Yeah.
Not for everybody.
So the way I explain the water thing in the morning, water has two actions. One is a cleansing action, and the second one is the hydration action. So the first one is actually, the first cup of water is cleansing. So it's helping move any mucus that's been sitting in the digestive tract. It helps it move out. So a lot of times that will initiate your bowel movements. Just having that 1 cup. And then the second one is for the hydration. And yes, the first one will do a little bit of hydration, but its main action is to cleanse. And we've gone over time.
And we have. And we should ask all these lovely people who joined us if they have any questions, any comments.
I guess not.
Just listening podcast.
Did I read that you are starting your class?
You did. I do indeed have my free conversation on how we combine acupressure and essential oils to help relieve many of the common menopause symptoms, whether they're emotional or physical.
Fabulous.
And that'll be on the 15th of this month.
And I am doing a 3-hour workshop on bridging the seasons. And it's an introduction into my membership. But the 3-hour workshop is bridging summer season, where it's dry and hot, to the rainy monsoon humid season. Maybe that's what I'll call it, rainy monsoon humid season of summer. Because we need to do different things. We start feeling heavier and more tired at that season, more so than the other, even though it's meant to cool things down. It cools things down for the earth, but it drains us. So there are things that we can do to bridge those 2 seasons. And that's happening on the 19th, a Saturday. Yeah.
Beautiful. So we are hoping that people will join us. So yes.
And subscribe. You will find out more about these activities and get more information. And if you have any questions about summer season, you're planning a vacation and you know that you're traveling with different kinds of people and whatnot, and what you can do to alleviate some of those things, feel free to message. Is that what we do on Substack, or do we chat?
I think people just drop us a chat or a direct message now. Yes,
Okay,
a direct
that's the
message.
word.
If there were any questions, do send us or have a comment. And when we post this, do have a comment or a question there too, because we will read and we will answer. Yeah.
Yes, please do. Well, from my heart to your art.
Thank you. Nice one. And to everyone who joined us, we hope you gained value, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. And this will be up shortly if you missed anything.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay.